Welcome back to the Pixelists Podcast, my friends, the podcast about all the nerdy things we love and enjoy. As always, we're your hosts. That's Blake. I'm Will, and today we're here to talk a little Critical Role. But before that, we got to do our little awkward intro, catch-up, coffee talk time. So how are you doing today, my friend?
Doing well. I was on LinkedIn. That's such a random anecdote.
That's what people are here for.
Yeah, thank you. And so something like popped up on my feed was like something about podcasting, and it was like, the biggest tip for podcasters is, and then it like line broke, get to the point. And then it was like this long blurb about stop doing like all the intro stuff and like the random stuff, whatever. And like nobody cares. And I was like, my people care. Well, but maybe they don't.
Well, and I thought where you were about to go with that is the fact that they were like not doing that themselves in this post.
I think I've learned that some people are like so transactional. There's like different kinds of podcasters. I think there's like the YouTube content piece that's like, when you're trying to like figure out something like how to change a tire, and it's like 5 minutes about like, today we're going to be talking about how to change a tire, and by the way, and you're just like, okay, bro, I just want the video that just gets to it.
Yeah, that's the worst.
So I get that thinking from a podcast perspective of like, hey, people are listening to, just get to the point. But I also know that in the podcast world, there's definitely something to be said about like your tribe or audience of like people who you're, they're there for the relationships, So
yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah.
What do I know?
No, I'm right there with you. In terms of like those types of YouTube videos are like a recipe, where they give their whole like life story before. It's just like, tell me how many eggs are in it, man. So yeah, but yeah, I'm with you. What if we're just completely delusional and people are like, God, I wish they would just start with a recap. Like, please shut up.
The moment I was like, yeah, it says get to the point, they were like, yes, finally. And then we moved on past it. They're like, no, you were so close to becoming self-aware. But
not today.
I will say in those people's defense, we don't have a ton of time today. So we might just scoot on past some of the pleasantries.
How dare you?
Do you like that voice, by the way?
Is that your Sean Connery?
I try to like when I'm DMing, throw out like I'm like, I'm just going to throw out the act. I've not practiced it. We're just going to go in cold turkey. So I ran in with a voice a few sessions ago, and it was like a New Zealander accent. I've never in my life done it before, and I think my table would like me not to do it again.
They miss those days when you had never done it before.
That's right. So the worst is like when afterwards you're like, what'd y'all think of that accent? They're like, oh, that was New Zealand. I thought
like, oh,
I thought you were trying to be like a French guy or something. You're like, yeah. So anyway,
I feel like I used to be able to do a good New Zealand, but now I feel like I lost it back during the like Flight of the Conchord days. I feel like I had it, but now I don't feel like I have it anymore.
Gone too soon from us. A beauty of a show.
So good, ahead of its time.
Yeah, I'm glad my wife liked it because I showed it to her like after it was off air.
Yeah,
and it was, you have those tests with your significant other just to see like the true metal of a person.
Yeah. And
she thought it was funny. If she had downed it, I don't know.
Might have had to get the divorce started.
I just don't know. Yeah. So anyway,
bro, I feel like today that show would act like in the era of like TikTok and YouTube clips of their skits. Like I feel like it would be so much even more popular today. Anyway, that's not to distract us. Last couple things here, the same announcements as always. Join the Discord. We got good folks over there. There's been a lot of interesting discussion, especially after this most recent Critical Role episode.
A lot of good folks.
A lot of folks over in them parts. And
I don't know why I spoke so loudly to say that again, but I just like to go with it.
Yeah, Rocco. But yeah, so join the Discord. Critical Role watch parties Thursday. Our stream should be coming back this Friday. So be on the lookout for that. Friday, 1 p.m. Central Time, whenever that is for y'all. And then Worlds Beyond Number on break right now. Catch up if you have not. Start the show if you have not. Anything else?
Kablam.
Boom. All right.
Remember that show?
Wait, what? Kablam? Yeah. I do remember that show. There were some diamonds in the rough in that show.
And some very weird skits too.
Very weird.
Yeah. Did you like how you got us on track to this recap that I
And then
said
you
we
just
needed it? Yeah, I just sent it out. So anyway,
well, yeah.
well,
Would you like to
yeah,
launch us, sir?
yeah. Well, without further ado, let's jump into our little recap. And if you enjoy these recaps and you watch them separate from the main video, let us know in the comments so we should know if we should keep cutting these out as their own separate videos. Otherwise, we'll keep them as one intact video. But doing the recap, we like to take the 4 or 5 hour episode and break it down into a 15, 20-minute chunk. And then we jump into our full discussion. So having said that, this was episode 107. And I'll let Will tell you the name of it.
Underneath the eyes of the ARCHEART. That I'm not looking at it. I didn't write it down, but I think it's something like that.
From what we know happened in the episode, I'm shipping that.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
We're going with it. So the episode picks up on like the cusp of this battle scene. We have Sarlord Zethuda, Gloamgut, Ludinus or Snow Cone Ludinus, or I don't know what to call it, Simulacrum.
Snowdinus, I think, is the official terminology.
And then we have the emissary of the Unseelie Court and a couple of their guards. Long story short, this first half is actually, the runtime is about 4.5 hours, and about 3.5 hours is this battle sequence between Bell's Hells and these individuals. So typically what we do in combat is we just cover the high notes of it. What I will tell you is, as this combat starts, you have some of the party that's like up in like the window looking over the battle scene, or like this sort of temple area. Then you have other people who are like the actual boots on the ground. And there's a couple of different strategies that are happening in this battle. Namely, first of all, Chetney has the idea early on in combat to grab the notes from Ludinus from Malesmere, where they had first found like the staff of the Dark Intent, I think is what it was called. Yeah. But they first found out about the harness and got the harness from that location. And if you recall, these notes are like basically, they were essentially Ludinus's description of going around and consuming these fae with the harness. But anyway, Chetney hands these notes over to Fern and is like, "You'll know what to do." And then Ashley Johnson's like, "What the heck you want me to do with this?" Just a great moment. But essentially on Fern's turn, we're going to have a few instances of her really amping up the daughter angle of like, "Dad, help me. And by the way, Ludinus can't be trusted," and just is going very heavy into this. Ludinus will betray you. I have proof. He's been killing fae. And so that's her approach. We also have notably Imogen, who decides at one point during combat that she, the cast has been big on taming Gloamgut, and she sees her opportunity when the Sarlord is no longer on top of Gloamgut. She decides she's going to sneak up to Gloamgut and try to mount Gloamgut and take its reins. She has an animal handling check, and Matt gives her advantage because of her past working on a farm, essentially a stable, loving horses rather, and being Rudis born. And she seemingly is successful through navigating the bridle, I guess, for lack of a better phrase, of Gloamgut. There is this sort of like prismatic breath that goes out across the battlefield, but then eventually she's able to like move in motion with the Gloamgut. Anyway, through the process of combat, there is like a central pillar to the temple that is getting damaged as combat's going on, and it looks like if it does break, the entire temple will collapse. And then at one point, Snowdinus, the Ludinus Simulacrum, is preparing to cast I can't remember if it was this moment or a later moment, but we very much get like the version 2.0 of the Laudna counterspells Ludinus from the previous time, where Ludinus prepares to cast a spell and Laudna casts counterspell. And I think this one actually was successful because I think Ludinus didn't know that Laudna was casting it, so couldn't counterspell in return, if I'm remembering correctly. I can't remember
It was
exactly.
something like that.
Either way, there is a cast that's going off of an 8th level spell, but Ludinus can't decide who to cast it on, decides to hold his action of actually casting it. And before it comes back around to his turn, he is actually destroyed. The simulacrum is destroyed, I think, by Ashton. With Ludinus gone, Fern sees an opportunity to again really hamp up this divide between Ludinus and the Unseelie Court. Combat seemingly stops for a moment as they realize, hey, we might have a common foe here with Ludinus, and the party begins to very anxiously navigate this conversation of like, what happens without Ludinus? Where do we go from here? And I think the party kind of envisioned like a, hey, we're all friends, let's go attack Ludinus. But instead, Sorrow Lord Zethuda instead talks about, not only are we going to kill Ludinus, but with me, we're going to destroy the resistance, i.e., the people attacking the Malleus Key and basically the good guys. And then we're going to ferry you directly to the cage around Predathos where you can basically accept your destiny. And there's some mentions too about Dark Fern, which we'll get into in our discussion. But essentially, Zethuda's like, this is who you were always meant to be. Well, the party realizes that, okay, well, we like the idea of killing Ludinus. We didn't really fully expect the angle of like kill all of our friends too. So as like this dialogue is happening, Fern actually asks Zethuda about how to scratch and pet Gloamgut. And as he's distracted, Imogen is going to cast Psychic Lance on Zethuda, which this is not just a successful spell, but when it is a successful spell, or rather when Zethuda fails the wisdom saving throw, he is incapacitated. So he goes down incapacitated. The emissary who was on Gloamgut preparing to escape gets vine whipped off by Aurum. And essentially combat starts again. There's another successful Psychic Lance on Zethuda that takes him out another turn. We also get a Disintegrate spell from Laudna that is designed to kill Zethuda, but actually doesn't do quite enough hit points of damage against him, though his leg, I think Matt said, was like totally disintegrated in this spell. It just gets totally like knocked off. All this to say, as combat begins again, that pillar that I mentioned breaks. The temple begins to collapse. Fern wants to protect the Sorrow Lord Zethuda and pull him out. Imogen and Breus are trying to help as well, as everyone is trying to escape. And essentially, most of the party makes it out of this temple as it collapses, except for, I think it was Breus and Imogen who are inside as the temple crumbles on top of them. And that is where we go to break. If you want to take it from there.
Yes, sir. And there's a lot of information in this second half, even though it wasn't that long. So y'all bear with me. I'll try not to get too long-winded here. Yep. But so we pick up, like Blake said, with the majority of the party outside of this crumbling ruined temple, but Breus, Imogen, and the unconscious body of Zethuda still inside. So the ones that are outside basically immediately move to start going through this rubble to try and, save their friends. Meanwhile, Dorian, who's outside with the unconscious body of the emissary, has these emissary guards like start walking towards him. And so he's like, and he like tries to weaken to Bernie's it, but then quickly abandons that idea. And I think throws up, I forget the name of the spell, hypnotic illusion or something, pattern maybe. And is successful on both of the emissary guards. So they are, for the next minute, kind of not a problem. And so Dorian takes this time to tie up the emissary. We then cut to Breus and Imogen, who again are inside, but we see that they are okay. They're like in this cavity in the crumbled temple. Like they have been like protected by some unseen force that has created this safe space for them. And as they're inside, they see these rocks begin to move. And slowly but surely, they see the temple reconstructing itself. And so as this is happening, everybody that was outside also sees this. And they're like, what? And so all bells hells like run in to Imogen and Breus. And, Laudna runs up and hugs her. Meanwhile, Zethuda is making death saving throws. And he's made 2, I believe, at this point when Breus performs a medicine check to try to stabilize him. This is successful, so he is okay for now, but still unconscious. They decide to like kind of keep walking in the temple and see what's going on here as it fully rebuilds. And it's at this point that they notice the statue of the Archeheart get rebuilt, and then its eyes kind of shift. And it's at this moment that Matt stands up from the table, walks away, and Abu Bakr Salim comes and sits down in the DM chair. Everyone freaks out. No one in the cast knew this was happening. And he basically just immediately picks up where Matt left off as the statue, like just fully automated and moving now. And the first thing he does is approach Breas, and he says, "You really have to smash my face in," because Breas had done that earlier. And as he says that, they hear like this screech, and the like roof of the temple opens up, and he describes like these portals with arms that like stretch out and grab everybody essentially. And then the next thing they know, all of Bell's Hells are somewhere else. And we come to find out that they are in the domain of the Archeheart now. He describes it as kind of this open field of crystalline reeds and beautiful stars and constellations above. And the Archeheart himself is like this silhouetted form kind of within the stars, sort of. Very, very beautiful as he describes it. And he continues looking at Breas saying, "You're in my domain now, so swear fealty to me and I'll let you live." And Breas does not want to do this, but ultimately says, there are more important things in life than living. Like there's, my family and friends. So no, like I'm not going to do that. And the Archeheart laughs and says, "I almost had you, but I respect it." So welcome you all to, I guess, what is my home. And he goes, he asks what they have seen, referring to Downfall. And so the party then explains to him the vision that they saw of Downfall. And as they do, he like materializes this table with food and drink and, for them to enjoy. And so after they explain what they saw, he says, "Well, what are you going to do with this information? What are you going to do with this knowledge of Aor? And what are you doing in my temple right now?" And Orym at that point then explains Ludinus and kind of Ludinus's whole plan with Predathos, and basically just gets the Archeheart up to speed on what Bell's Hells knows. And he says, we're just afraid what's going to happen if Ludinus succeeds. What's going to happen to this delicate balance between the gods and the mortals if Predathos is unleashed. And the Archeheart says that, "I fear that too. I fear the disruption of that balance. But part of me wonders if that balance needs to be broken. Because something needs to change. Our children continuously rebel. There's just this cycle, a perpetual cycle of, us going away and then something happening and us stepping in." And during this conversation, he notices the Titan shards within Fern and Ashton, and he's very fascinated by those. And then Ashton, I'm probably going to hit just random things that happen in this conversation, but Ashton says like, just what do you guys want? Like, what do you gods actually want? Why can't you just let go? And the Archeheart says, that actually is what I want. I want to let go. I'm bored, tired, but the real question is, how do we let go? Because big divine gates don't work. Death isn't an option. Like, we're not trying to die. So like, how exactly do we do that? I think I have an idea. And he describes that there's a window of opportunity here, but there will be sacrifice involved. And he basically then asks about the whole vessel thing and if they understand what it means to be a vessel. Laudna chimes in, obviously, with her experience with Delilah. And so they say they're familiar with it, but obviously they don't know what's going to happen to Predathos' vessel. And the Archeheart says, well, yeah, there's a few of us who do want to let go, want to leave, but not all of us. We're divided in this moment. And we're doing this same song and dance again, where we're all sitting at a table deciding what to do. Should we intervene? Should we not? We are this close to another calamity because we fear our death, just like we did last time. So the truth is, lives will be lost no matter what, all in the service of us staying alive. And I think that's incredibly selfish. And I'm seeing that now. I thought we could change, but we couldn't because here we are again. So I think the only solution is to have what Ludinus desires, aka Predathos being freed. But I think what we need to do is have one of you two, I think he's referring to Imogen and Fern as the root is born, be the vessel and control Predathos and chase us away. He thinks that's the only way to truly save humanity, because they can't evolve and flourish if the gods are always just sitting there waiting to intervene. And they will not leave of their own accord. They'll need to like leave in fear from Predathos. Like that's going to be the only way to accomplish this. But he says, I don't know what's going to happen to the vessel though. So that's why this will require sacrifice. So there's this back and forth basically on that whole thing. Chet asks a few questions. We confirm that 2 of their gods did die when Predathos first arrived, 2 of their family. And then he also asks, have you had this same conversation with Ludinus? Like, or is that where this came from? And he says, no. You know, while I do kind of like the idea, as I'm telling you here, Ludinus is not the one. Like, he's too selfish. He wants to be like us. He's too caught up. But the ARCHHEART says, the main important thing with this plan is you have to be faster than us, because we aren't going to let this happen. Like Ludinus's whole plan, we aren't going to allow that because that threatens us. So we will step in just like we did in Aor. And that's like the plan. Like when this big battle happens, when all these moves are to be made, like we're going to show up and it's going to be Calamity Part 2. So that's why you have to be faster than us. That's why you guys need to sneak in, become the vessel, and make this plan happen to force us to flee. And none of the other gods know about this, obviously. Like, this is just me as the ARCHHEART saying this plan. Well, they're like, well, we still don't know. Like, even if the Predathos is in a vessel, will we be able to contain him? What if he turns on humanity? And the ARCHHEART says that Predathos does not care about humanity. You're nothing to him. He has one desire, and that is to consume us. So, like, you don't need to worry about that. Breus asks, if they were to flee from Predathos, would everyone flee? Like, would all the gods flee? Even Asmodeus being the implication here. And ARCHHEART is like, yes, like we would all go. There's a little moment where he like pretends to summon Asmodeus to like try to convince Breus as well, but it was just like a little gambit. So they keep talking about this, and he just eventually says, you know, I'm just being honest with you guys, presenting the only option that I can see to actually like end this perpetual cycle that we're in. We'll only run from something we fear, and that is Predathos. It's like the only option. And this is a unique opportunity because there's a divide in the family for the first time. We aren't all aligned on stepping in to do another calamity. Some of us want to leave. Some of us refuse to leave the children. So like, because we're divided in that way, this is the only option. Like, we will only all run if we fear Predathos. Dorian's like, do you think a vessel could even really control Predathos? And he says, I don't know. That's what's exciting about this. Every other previous time or threat, like we could always see through it to the other side. This one scenario is the one where I don't know what's going to happen. And so that's why it's like the only option. Again, otherwise we're going to step in and like Calamity Part 2. So I think this is the best shot. And again, if you take too long to decide, this decision will be made for you. Dorian says, you know, I never cared for the gods, but I'll make a deal with them if it means we're rid of you guys for forever. So Dorian's on board with this. The ARCHHEART then pulls a star from the sky at the end of this and asks them to all walk toward it. And there's this like gaunt feminine face within the star that's whispering about a wish and a weapon. And the ARCHHEART says, this was someone dear to me. And there's this, and we'll talk more about this in our discussion, but there's this hair at the end of the Star Woman's mouth. And Imogen goes and plucks it and pulls on it, and it starts to like wrap around her finger, and the star like dissolves as it does. And there's this like brilliant, powerful flash of light. And during this, Laudna gets a vision of the Raven Queen that says, come find me. And they hear like this voice in their heads that says, you've heard my side of things. You'll have to make your decision, but you don't have much time, and just do what you think's right. They then all wake back up on like the floor of the temple in the Feywild. Abu gets up, walks away. Matt comes back, sits back down. Imogen now has this like golden ring around her finger where the hair was, and Matt gives her an item card. This is a vestige of divergence, we find out. Crazy item. gives you +2 AC, +2 spell, +2 spell DC, advantage on cons, and when you make a concentration spell check, if you roll higher than your current HP, you'll cast Meteor Swarm. But if you roll below, you basically take the damage of a Meteor Swarm yourself. And that's where the episode ends. Once again, episode 107, Beneath the Gaze of the ARCHHEART or something. If you're just on our recap, be sure to check our full discussion. And yeah, whew, a lot of stuff there at the end.
Oh man, great job, by the way. Yeah, I had a little peek of your phone with all the notes, and I thought, yeah, that last hour was chunky. It's a lot. It was a lot for sure. And also, like, as a random detail, this is just like my random thought, which it may just be me. It felt a little bit like Matt. I don't want to say like easy played the combat. I feel like the combat could have been a lot worse than it was. And there were a couple instances that I think of, but one notably when Ludinus decided to hold the 8th level spell instead of casting it. And I was kind of like, this feels a little bit, not so much like a softball, but I guess it wasn't as brutal as I thought it could be. But knowing that Abubakar Salim was in the studio, I can also see Matt as a DM being like, I don't really want to get in the weeds of like a player death, so to speak, in the sense of like, that's a pretty big assumption on my part, but
I get what you're saying.
All I'll say is there was a bit of a disconnect in the first half for me that made sense in the second half. I was like, oh, okay, I'm getting this now a little bit.
Yeah, I could see that. I mean, that definitely makes sense as kind of like an outside pressure on that combat. Yeah, I don't know. I kind of get what you're saying. There were a few, I don't want to say pulled punches, but I know what you're talking about.
That's kind of what I mean. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think it was like, and I'm not even saying Matt was like trying to be subtle and like, don't know that I'm pulling punches. I just think that there were some decisions made that made sense for the characters when they made them, but it could have been way worse. They could have made much more brutal decisions.
Yeah.
So kind of like a quasi pulled punch, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I get what you're saying. But I do think that again, who knows what's actually going through Matt's head, but I do think that would make sense if for the listeners, total like random conjecture on my side of it. And I almost hate that we started there, by the way. Abubakar Salim is so electric, by the way, on like as a DM, as a just voice actor. As I was watching that second half, there was literally a moment that I had goosebumps thinking like injected into my veins a D&D campaign that he is the DM. It was so good. Have you watched the cooldown by chance?
No, I have not.
Okay. Yeah, that was his first time ever DMing.
No way.
Yeah.
No way.
Can you imagine like those stakes and Critical Role is your first time ever behind the DM screen?
I thought he was excellent. I thought he did such a good job.
Yeah, fantastic. I mean, obviously the voice, we've talked about that during Downfall, but it's just so good just in and of itself. But yeah, I thought he did such a good job. Especially like that situation, like, and I'll talk more about what him and Matt talked about in the cooldown, but just like, that's like a very, what's the word? Like a burden's not the right word, but like a lot of responsibility, like having to be the DM in that moment where like the players who have all of these questions about the gods and like this guest is the one that has to like do that justice. You know what I mean? Like,
well, and I think of also like I would feel pressure of like, you never know what your players are going to do or ask.
Right. Yeah.
So like the player who asks a question and he's like having to lore build like
right,
in the moment, like, is Matt going to be mad that I just, changed the canon? I thought he was incredibly excellent. I would easily listen to like long form content from him. It has such a great presence at the table.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of like crazy. This was not on my bingo card. Like I
Yeah,
just did not expect the
me
conversation
neither.
to go this way. It was a nice it was also like a really nice fresh take on the will they won't they conversation, which has been kind of beat to death. I think it's been like maybe a consistent criticism of like here we are again.
Yeah,
This was a really nice like new take on that. And I kind of like where I was with Downfall, I'm genuinely curious where the party goes from here and like the decision that gets made.
yeah.
Which I don't know if we want to start there or not, but
I
um,
do want to like get to that, but just because
okay.
I feel like it makes sense to just kind of talk about the cooldown stuff right now.
Oh yeah, sure.
So like none of the players knew. Matt hid that from all of them, which that was like a big funny thing too, because like apparently Travis had dinner with Abu the night before, and so nobody knew. Matt planned this, and they had like a lunch where they talked for like 3 hours about the lore, and so Matt, tried to prepare him for that. But what I thought was really cool, it really speaks again to just like how humble Matt is, and just how like I don't know, just I love Matt, but like that those were Abu's ideas. Like Matt didn't say this is the plan the Archeart is going to present to them to for one of them to become the vessel and that you guys will
Yeah,
run. That was Abu. Like Matt
yeah.
asked him, "All right, like I want you to be the Archeart right now, and I'm going to tell you all this information about the lore, about what Bell's Hells is up to. Like, how would you feel?" And so, like, all of those decisions were Abu's agency to make. And that it's just like so cool to not only like let him step in and DM that moment, but let him guide that whole thing, which we're going to talk about it in a minute, but like literally seems like it's going to paint the direction of the campaign moving forward.
And that's sign of a. This isn't really the right word, but it's a sign of a great leader. I mean,
Yeah,
Matt literally
like
just hey, make it
just
your own.
the
I love that.
trust there, and just like the humility. Like I'm not gonna be in that position, but like hypothetically, like that this is my baby, my
Yeah,
10+ year baby of this epic
yeah.
fantasy story that three different campaigns have all been building to this climactic moment of will they, won't they with Predatos. You know what? Hey, Abu, do what you want. Like it's just like it takes like a really like special person to like, and not that Matt would be a bad guy if he didn't want to do that. Like,
Yeah.
I
Well, I mean, I think I wouldn't even say bad guy. I think it'd be understandable. Like this is his baby and like I would get it. So the fact that he is so like open-handed about it of like, and it makes me think of like similar conversations with Brennan Lee Mulligan
yeah.
of just like, yeah, make it your own. Um, it's very cool. I mean, it's got to be empowering for Abu too. But there was something else I was going to say that I forgot about this topic. Oh, I had one of my players at my table did a one shot, and I said, just do whatever setting, whatever you want to do. And it was really special in the opening moments of our one shot, which ended up being a 6 month campaign, I guess.
Yeah, yeah.
I was like, when's this one shot ending, by the way? It was very special realizing that it was a town on the continent that I created in the world that I created. So a little bit to give more context here, I think in some ways it's like the biggest pride you could have is to
Yeah.
build this world and have someone want to come inside and like create within it.
Yeah.
That's a very special. It's a very special feeling.
For sure. Yeah, Matt talked about how he was just like creeping on the side with like a huge smile on his face when Abu was going. But yeah, the whole cast was surprised when he said he hadn't DM'd before, and just everyone was saying how amazing it was.
Yeah, it really was.
But yeah, just such a fun, just cool to do, but just such a fun idea as well. With not only this, but with Brennan and Downfall, it's just so cool that they're opening up the doors for everybody in that way.
Yeah.
But yeah, Abu absolutely killed it. Like has that presence, like to be the deity. Just a really cool way to shape the story in this moment, I thought. Um, but yeah, I guess one other thing from the cooldown is that we found out. So there's the ring, the vestige, which Matt did use the word vestige, and then there was also though a curse. So Matt like in preparation for this said, hey, Abu, like I want you to create an item, the vestige, but I also want you to create a curse. And like depending on how this goes, maybe you curse one of them instead of helping them. So that obviously didn't happen, but there was a curse he created called the Mark of the ARCHHEART, where the target was going to gain like this arcane scar on their eye that would have like changed their eye to be like purple and orange. And they basically have disadvantage on charisma checks and saves, and they also would do force damage. And it was kind of like somebody else was cross talking, so I don't know how much force damage or when that comes into play, but it would last forever until the ARCHHEART removed it. So it's just funny to think that Breas, if he made it just shifted a little bit, might have ended up with that. But
Which is funny because that is his primary stat,
right? Yeah,
and in the sense of, I mean, that would have been his deception rolls that are so high. Well,
yeah.
not so much anymore. So that'd be interesting.
So yeah, that item, man, that was so cool.
Yeah,
and to tie all
what a crazy
stuff back
freaking
in.
cool item, by the way.
Yeah,
like so cool. What's that? What was it called again? Did we get a name for it?
I don't.
Let me go to the. Let's go to the old trusty Critical Role wiki.
The Golden Ring of Remembrance is what I wrote in my notes. I don't know if that's a fish.
Yeah, let's see here.
But while you're doing that, though, just such a cool, and there's also something you talked about in the cooldown of like getting the chance to kind of wrap up some of those things, like the whole Selena and the hair from Downfall.
Yeah, I loved that. What a great tie-in for sure.
And so I'm sure everyone, not insulting anybody by explaining this, but just as a refresher, Selena was like the archmage that at the very end of Downfall cast the wish to spread the Factorum Malleus information into everyone's heads so that the knowledge of this weapon could, still remain out there. That obviously was not successful, but the ARCHHEART, remember, like pushed her through a portal or something at the end to like save her. Well, what ended up happening is she was just like lost in his domain, and he eventually just turned her into a star.
Yeah, which I just love that.
Yeah.
I wish I had something actually interesting to say other than just, I love it. That's what you came here for. It's just, high praise. Okay, so on the wiki, Ring of Remembrance, and it is, though it's listed here as a relic of the Red Solstice. But I thought it was explicitly called a vestige.
I mean, it would make more sense to be a relic, in my opinion. Well, maybe it wouldn't. Matt specifically used the word vestige, so I think it is a vestige.
Well, and they're functionally the same item or type of item, just,
Yeah, and I think the idea is basically when it was created. And I think even though it just like manifested on Imogen's finger, I guess theoretically it was created back during like the Calamity time, which is when the rest of the vestiges are from. So I do think it makes more sense to call it a vestige.
And another detail, it is presented as its exalted state,
right?
Rather than the dormant and awakened state. But yeah, so then Meteor Swarm, just for our listeners, it is 20 d6 fire damage and 20 d6 bludgeoning damage. So,
yep.
Yeah. Talk about high risk, high reward, man.
Yeah. And that's so cool. So again, the way it works, and you correct me if I'm wrong, when you make a concentration check, like in order to maintain your concentration, you have a choice. So it doesn't happen every time. It's like you can do this if you want. And if you roll above your current HP, you will get the Meteor Swarm spell, which means you're going to have to be you're going to have to be about to die to use this. Yeah. Because if you don't roll above your HP, you take the Meteor Swarm damage, which is going to kill you. So it's basically like a big red button when things are going bad. So I really hope we see this.
Bro, I know. Like, I'm just like, give me the moment where it's like it's very much the butchering now the example, but Doctor Strange, like the one moment, like I just envision this battle scene where like someone's like, I'm gonna do it, and you're just like, oh my gosh. And I loved the flavor of this item, because wasn't it Abu who casted the Meteor Swarm in Downfall in that final Okay. Yeah, that's what I thought.
I believe so. Yeah.
I love the callback to that too.
Yeah.
So
So that's just a cool
um,
item, you know? And
yeah,
then, super powerful even without that insanely cool effect. The +2 to everything that a spellcaster wants, basically.
yeah,
Um,
pretty
so yeah,
powerful.
real cool.
Oh man. What a wild reveal though that the Archheart wants Redathos freed.
Yeah, I liked that. I
Me
liked that a
too.
lot. They also touched on that a little bit in the cooldown. I can't remember who all said it, but like I think a few members of the cast were being like, we were even planning to contact the Archeart because of what happened in Downfall. We thought that like of all the gods, like they may be the one we should talk to, and um, yeah, like I think it's just so cool that again this was Abu's idea, but then beyond that, that like this is a like kind of secret all or nothing plan. None of the other gods know about this, and I don't know. I feel like he just makes. I'm not. I don't want to shift too far away from what you're talking about here, but in terms of the plan he presented, like it seems to make sense, right? Because we are caught in this perpetual cycle. Like, okay, yeah, after the calamity, the gods did seal themselves away, but it's like, well, here we are again. If they're threatened, they're gonna come right back, and we're gonna have calamity part two, and it's like
Yeah,
they'll go seal themselves away again, but like nothing. What's changed?
what's the functional, how does that work? Like, can they just like take down the divine gate if they
I
decide to
guess.
collectively, or
I
okay.
guess. I mean, we never really have known, but that certainly seemed to be the implication that like they can come back if they want to.
And what
Um,
about, I mean, that was a crazy reveal for me too, that hey, this isn't like we're not gonna watch y'all have this battle. Like we're gonna come and we're gonna destroy everything.
yeah,
Um, I was kind of like, okay, the stakes are a little larger now.
yeah.
So
Which makes sense though, right?
yeah,
I
oh
mean,
yeah.
like assuming that we know they can come through the divine gate, and some. I mean, who knows how the nuance of it actually works? But obviously, they have some agency there. So yeah, I mean, if their lives are threatened, just like last time, we're not just gonna let you kill us by releasing Predathos.
And it ties up a loose thread I've had through this whole, probably more significantly like the last 50-ish episodes of like why are the gods just like watching this happen? Like why aren't
Yeah,
they
yeah,
doing anything about it? So like this conversation was like, oh, they are. It's just that they're gonna wait till the battle has begun and they aren't expecting the Ruby Vanguard, whoever, aren't expecting the attack for them just to come in and just stomp on people, I guess.
yeah. And I guess it
So,
also for like the kinder hearted prime deities and stuff, they're at least giving humanity a chance. Like maybe they'll do the right thing. Like maybe they'll
yeah,
deal with it and we don't have to do this. But
yeah,
like
like
if push comes to
Everlight or
shove, we're doing
yeah.
it. Like we're not gonna let you kill us. So yeah, I agree that I think that clears up some things nicely for me as well.
Do
In
you
terms
think
of
that? Do you think he was being honest about there being another god who was part of his plan? Like I didn't. Which I'll say two things actually. I didn't know if he was just. Part of me wonders if it was really just him, and he was like, "Yeah, someone else wants this too," to like kind of build credibility around it. But really, he just wants to see it happen. But on the same token, with the matron reference at the end, I was the heavy signal that the other one is the matron.
yeah. So okay, I'm curious that you said that because I didn't remember that part in the episode, but in the cooldown that was referenced, and so I was wondering
It was the
what was that. So
very. It was the not the stinger. It was like the last moments of the
no, I
ep
remember the
where.
Raven Queen part, but was there a
Oh
part earlier where he mentioned another god was with him?
yes, early in his conversation where he's revealing the plan, someone asks something like, "Who feels this way?" And he says something like, "Yes, a few of us do." Actually, two, me and one
Hmm.
other. And Brea says, "Well, who's the other?" And he says, "Oh, well, I can't spoil the fun."
Oh, okay, yeah,
Um,
I remember that spoil the fun line now.
yeah.
Um,
So,
okay, yeah,
but I also
interesting.
wondered if like, is it just you though? But
Well, that Raven
yeah,
Queen moment would certainly make sense in that light. And they
yeah.
did this, they were kind of the ones that like kind of had those moments in Downfall together.
And here's not to make, not to just try to tie up more loose ends,
Yeah.
but there's also the detail of why do the Ruby Vanguard have matron emblems? Like why you remember us talking about this of like, why do
Right.
they worship the
Right.
matron of ravens when they want to kill all the gods? It doesn't, and we talked about this in our, this was 80 episodes ago
Hmm.
of, or well, however many it was, of maybe it's like being undercover or a ruse. Well, if the matron is part of this plan, which, but then again, Vax, you know what I'm saying? There's a lot of like
Yeah.
confusion there of like, well,
Yeah,
wait a
that's
second.
true. I guess
So,
for my money right now, as we understand things, I wouldn't think that like the matron's working with Ludinus.
mhm.
I would think the Ruby, like, because the Ruby Vanguard seems like just like Ludinus like hired them or is working with them, and so maybe like the Maiden was just kind of their thing, and I don't know how they're connecting the mental gymnastics of like, but we're gonna kill the gods. So yeah, I don't know. Like, it's certainly a interesting thing to think about because it seems like she'd be the most obvious choice for the one the Archeheart was referring to, especially given the teaser at the end.
Mhm.
But yeah, in the cooldown that was brought up, and Travis like said something. It was like, yeah, there's one more though, right? And then he said it was Ludinus, like 'cause, like Ludinus is secretly a god. Maybe like the whole
Oh,
god of death situation.
yeah.
But so yeah, I think okay. I feel like it's either the Raven Queen or I don't know. I was gonna say maybe one of the betrayers, but I don't know if that would make sense actually.
I would think it would be the Everlight just because of
Mm,
how, just purely based on how Ashley played her in Downfall. Um, I don't know. The other thing is, I think of, man, there's so many like breadcrumbs. It made me think, well, maybe it could be that one because I think of Ashton playing the Wild Mother, and after Aor crashed, looking over that catastrophe, he said something like, "We've ruined this world," or something to that
yeah.
effect. Um, so all that to say, I mean, the ARCHHEART'S thinking actually makes perfect sense to me. It's like it just continues again and again until we decide to break the cycle. And
Yeah.
also, I got kind of this impression, this thing of like our children. I almost felt like this weird possessiveness from the gods of like, well, we can't leave because this is ours. And it's almost like, well, is it really yours? Like, I mean, I don't know. What do I know?
I get
But
what you're saying.
I'm just kind of thinking out loud, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't it is curious. Yeah, I don't know. To cycle back, the plan makes sense to me too. Obviously Dorian also loved it. Ashton is really on board with it. I don't know if he said that in the cooldown or not, but obviously nothing's written yet, but it feels like this may be what they decide to do. Like to go through with this plan, which again I think is just crazy considering that Abu thought of this. It wasn't
Yeah.
like a mat plant to give them
Yeah.
a direction.
Uh,
Um
it's very compelling.
yeah, like what a
Like,
what a great idea, you know?
yeah. And think about, I have such like a thought process around, man, one of them actually becoming the vessel is very interesting. But also like, how are they gonna, like, I think of like Keyleth and like all the good guys, like, okay, wait, hang on. You're saying now we do release Predatos?
Yeah.
I'm just kind of wondering how much of this plan gets brought back to the rest of the people. Or are they kind of going rogue, for lack of a better phrase? I mean, how they
My,
play this out's very interesting.
yeah. I mean, I certainly don't know, but my guess would be that they don't like rogue. Like you don't even tell anybody else. Like because you kind of almost need it to not get out that this is the plan.
Yeah, right.
Um, but yeah, like I mean, and the Arcart mentioned sacrifice, so I think like if this is the route they go and it does somehow work, I think whoever the vessel is done. Like a best case scenario is they somehow like live, but either A, Predathos is going to completely take over, or B, they have to leave because they're chasing the gods, right? They're not going to get to just be the vessel and like live happily ever after. I don't think.
No, yeah, like yeah, leaving. Which I mean, it's a little light to call it a sacrifice. I mean, you're talking about like endless chase. I
Yeah,
mean, I don't know.
and like I mean, I guess best case scenario, they contain Predathos and retain all of their agency, and the gods flee because they're scared of Predathos, but they just chill because they're like, I'm in control. But like, I don't see
Yeah,
that actually being what happens.
I don't either. Yeah.
So it is, could make for some pretty compelling narrative as well. Like, I mean, could it be Fern? I felt like it would always be Imogen, but Fern, was presented as an option seemingly.
This, I think I continue to grow in my appreciation isn't the right word, but like thinking of, I can see Fern being the vessel. Like I also kind of always thought it'd be Imogen, but after this last episode, especially as Zathuda kept like reinforcing like basically Dark Fern is your destiny,
Yeah.
I was kind of like, yeah, I can definitely see this angle playing out. And I mean, it's tragic either way. I mean, if it's Imogen, then there's no cabin in the woods ending story.
Right.
And if it's Fern, it's something bittersweet about that too. So
Yeah, for sure. It definitely would be devastating in either case. I didn't even think about the fact that Dark Fern might have represented Predathos Fern.
yeah,
That's interesting.
yeah,
Plus, there's like some cool, like, because she has the Titan shard in her, like maybe that would, because Imogen is like the Ruid is born, or they both are, but the exultant, but like maybe
yeah.
Fern having the like part Titan, part devil, like maybe that would kind of even the scales in terms of being a good vessel.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't. Again, we know that Dorian and Ashton and a couple of them like this idea, but we don't know that this is what they'll do. And again, I love that the players know that it wasn't Matt that did that, because I think that's the reason this all came up. Is I think Ashley asked Abu, or maybe it was Marisha. So even though I wouldn't even call this metagaming, but knowing that this was just Abu's random idea, it's not necessarily the right choice, right? So like, might they still do something else? I don't know.
Mhm. Yeah. I also wonder, like, what other conversations are we going to get with the gods? It seems like they're going to be heading to talk to the matron, maybe now.
Yeah.
So, so now they've spoken to, um,
The Wild
surely,
Mother,
the Wild Mother. Thank you. Um,
which we know,
I guess actually we would know the Wild Mother isn't the other god
right?
because that presumably would have come up
Because
with
she
Orm,
wants to fight,
right?
so she must be one of the ones that doesn't want to leave.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And then
Um,
are there any other that they've talked to? Well, the Dawn Father, sort of.
yeah, through Abria's
Yeah.
character. I can't think of her name.
We also pretty much know it's not him
Yeah.
that wants to leave. It was. I am curious, even though Bray has kind of brought this up, and the ARCHEART like repeatedly said, like, no, if Predathos is out, we will all be leaving. I am just kind of curious what the betrayers, where they're at on. I mean, clearly they don't want Predathos out, but like, I wonder in the hypothetical vessel scenario, like, where they would be at on that. Would they actually also leave, or like, I guess we don't really know how the vessel situation works. Like, what if you kill the vessel? Maybe you can't. I mean, maybe they'll be godlike immediately. I don't know.
Yeah. I was laughing at maybe like a bad roll and whoever, whether it's Ashley or Laura, just being like, "Oh, you can't. I'm a god now." It's like, oh.
Sorry.
So
Yeah. I didn't see this coming, but like you mentioned, or maybe I don't know if I'm putting words in your mouth, but it did feel like a breath of fresh air in terms of this whole debate we've been debating for the whole campaign. It feels like we now have like a really like a route everyone can get behind. But I guess I shouldn't say that because we don't know.
yeah, I mean,
Maybe
like,
Orm's not about this.
well, I mean, true. That's a good point. I was just thinking after Downfall, I kind of expected a harder turn, I guess. Like, what do we do from here? And that didn't really happen. They were kind of like, okay, well, we're still kind of gonna keep on with what we're doing. So I mean, I could totally that could happen again. Um, but this feels a little bit, since it's not coming from lewdness, it feels like there's more opportunity for the party to get behind it. And even when it was coming from lewdness, there was still some, you know, similarly, Dorian and Ashton, who were kind of like, and to the point where even Chetney asked Ashton later that night, like, hey, are you part of this or not? Like, what do you want to do? And Ashton basically said, like, yeah, I'm with my friends, even though I don't really like where this is going, I guess.
Yeah.
So this feels more punchy, though, like more meaning behind this next decision.
Yeah. And I really like the way that the ARCHEART keeps getting characterized by these decisions. I feel like it's a really nice building off of what we saw in Downfall. That
Yeah, it's a beautiful building for sure.
yeah, the the one to give them the arcane gifts, and like the idea being that he wants them to truly grow and evolve, and that's why, like, you can't with us still around. Like, obviously he wants to live too, like he's not trying to just die, but I don't know, I just like the direction that Abu is doing with all of this.
Did you think? Did you get the implication with the ring that, like, was this like a nod to Selena, or is this literally Selena in ring form?
I think the
Like,
star was literally her,
yeah, okay.
but I don't think the ring is like her
Okay.
manifest or anything.
I was gonna say, because it's kind of a cool feeling, but then wait a second, this is like eternally
Yeah.
tragic, I guess. So okay,
Yeah.
that makes more sense for me then.
I would assume she's now truly dead. Like,
Yeah.
she kind of existed as that star for thousands of years or whatever, but yeah, and he said that because he loved her. I don't know if this was in the cooldown or not, but like that's why the ARCHEART did that, because he loved Selena. But yeah, tragic, but really cool, really beautiful. I for a second there, I wondered if like they were gonna learn the god killing weapon, which I couldn't really track on how that would work for what they were trying to do. But then the ring was way cooler and makes more sense in my opinion.
Yeah. I always wonder, like, at a table, like, Imogen reached out and grabbed it, if like anyone else is like, dang it, I should have grabbed it. Why didn't I grab it first? But I mean, it needed to go to a caster.
Yeah.
So kind of makes sense. But anyway.
Also cool as Burns Root is born too, but as the exultant to get it. Hopefully, well, never mind. We'll see.
What else from this episode?
Let me see.
Also, where's I think I missed the detail. Where's Gloamgut?
I don't know, actually.
Is Gloamgut just chilling nearby? Or
I don't know, actually. Was he in the rubble?
I don't think so.
I can't remember now how that ended.
There was a moment like in the second half where I just had like that thought of like, well, wait a second, where is Gloamgut in all of this? So maybe someone who's listening can drop a detail in the comments about maybe that was a line that I missed in the recap or in the first half, excuse me. But
yeah, I mean, because we still kind of have a lot of things to immediately deal with here. We have Zethura, who's not dead, but unconscious. We have the emissary. We have the emissary guards, who at this point are going to be coming out of that hypnotic pattern.
Yeah.
So I wonder, like, what are they gonna do from here? It doesn't seem like, especially if they do this plan with the ARCHEART, they're not gonna be telling Zethura that, So is it just gonna be kind of back away and let him come to consciousness whenever he may, or
he's missing a leg, I think.
Yeah, I think he is. Yeah, that's not great.
Nice afro. Yeah, I'm shocked he didn't have any legendary resistances, like just getting totally incapacitated like that. What What a crazy cool spell.
Yeah, that's true.
So,
And then, yeah, I guess Ira, he dimension doored out
yeah.
to get out of the falling rubble. But I wonder if
Yeah.
he's, like, is he like long gone, or is he just like 10 feet further in the
Yeah.
ruins?
I could definitely see it being like vibes of Ira, like dimension doors to a nearby ledge, sees the entire temple collapse and being like, I should go. Like
Yeah.
it's time for me to go. So I could see that.
So yeah, all that to say is that I feel like there's still a lot of things to get back in order before they even think about this plan.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do think they'll keep this close to the chest. Like, I wonder if, well, I don't know. I also don't see Orem like lying to Keyleth, but yeah, I don't know. Actually, I mean, I guess you could. I mean, it pretty much is in line with their current plan anyway.
Yeah.
Like they're doing the exact same thing by going to Prodathos, which is where Ludinus is going to be, which is what their mission was anyway. Just the added part of, well, we actually are going to let him out, and one of us will be the vessel.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm just kind of rambling, but
Yeah. I mean, I get really excited for episodes like this next one coming up because I just think, man, that first like 30 minutes is gonna, like, them actually digesting this is gonna be so interesting.
yeah.
So,
Maybe true.
Anything else you want to talk about?
Not really, to be honest.
Okay.
It's pretty much just that
Yeah.
second half.
Yeah. Well, let us know in the comments any details we missed or things that stood out to you. And we have, again, in our Discord, we'll have our watch party tomorrow night. It's a great, I feel like I always it's a great Discord. You want to get into it. It's really great. We got snacks.
Come hang out.
Yeah. It's just the two of us. Hey, you here for the watch party?
Oh.
I think I joined the wrong Discord. No, there's more than two of us. There's three of us. So
that's right.
No, I'm just kidding. Okay. I think that does it then.
Well, alrighty, y'all. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you very soon. Watch party Thursday, stream Friday. So see you then. Bye, y'all.